until I was relieved. And the screaming hit me. I couldn't pay attention to anything but that sound. It was all encompassing, a cacophony of agony, the sound of several men tortured beyond the limits of flesh and bone. I was no stranger to the sounds of pain after my time in the army, but none of it could compare to this. My eyes snapped to the source of the sound involuntarily. It was coming from the back of the massive room I had entered. The wall was solid rock, carved from the mountain itself. A small opening yawned dark at its base, seemingly a cave entrance that was blocked off after several meters by a pile of rubble and stone. A rockfall had sealed the cave shut. My head swam, and I leaned on a wall for support. I couldn't think, couldn't focus on anything but the echoing sound of men in horrible, never-ending pain. I was drowning in a dark pool inside my mind, with nothing to grab onto. Don't listen to the screaming. Yuri's word pulled me back into reality. I steeled myself. The screaming was still there, gnawing at my sanity. But I set myself against it. I would not fall to it. A man in a lab coat made to walk past me. I stepped in his path. He was a thin man, with a bald head and the stubble of several days on his chin. "Comrade, what is that thing?" I asked him, pointing to the cave entrance. "Where does it lead?" He looked at me in confusion. "Do you not know? Didn't anyone tell you?" "This is my first time on level 5. I don't know anything about this place. Please, I need to know." The researcher looked around, as if checking if no one was watching us. Then, he stepped in close to me. "There used to be a huge cave system beneath this mountain," he said, his voice low. "The local tribe would report strange noises coming out of it, and every now and then people would disappear while on the mountain. So we sent a small unit of 5 to check the tunnels." "What happened to them?" "Only one of them ever made it out. They found him 3 days later, wandering the wastes outside. He was beyond help, muttering to himself up at the dark, blood and things underneath his skin. When another unit went to find his comrades, they got all the way down here and found the cave-in. It seems the man blew a grenade while escaping and caused a rockfall that sealed the end of the caverns off. And the men inside? The men inside have been screaming ever since this place was found. Not a second of silence. In 5 years." The man stepped away from me and hurried away, obviously not wishing to continue talking. I swallowed nervously, my mouth suddenly dry and my throat tight. "So glad you could join us today, Private," came a voice from next to me. I turned and came face to face with Commander Sergei Yamantov. The man was smiling slightly, but that unceasing anger was still simmering in his eyes. "Sir, yes, sir," I saluted, clenching my jaw in frustration. "Awaiting orders, sir." Sergei smiled. "There is not much to do for soldiers here, Private, except wait and remain vigilant. You will stand guard at that post until you are relieved." He pointed at a small niche set in one of the walls of the room, barely large enough for a man to stand in it. "Sir, yes, sir," I answered, gritting my teeth. I walked over to my post.
Anyway, I posted something about this story that I had come across on one of these HoobTube, BlueTube things. My grandfather knew what happened in the Dyatlov Pass. The story itself is an hour and 10 minutes and 30 seconds. It's just a story. But then again, pay attention to the things that are still told, small and great, for a few years, for a few decades, for a few millennia. Pay attention to reoccurring things. So it turns out that there is some ancient thing, four beings from the ancient past that were somehow uncovered or found or reactivated. And four of them each overtook a human host. And of course, there is nothing on the mind of demented, tormented, damned being who at one time was God or the highest of angels or the highest of something. But then they did something or they sinned or they otherwise became what they were, condemned to be forever. But they were so great and so powerful that, well, they can possess someone's body and be in that body for decades, screaming. That's all those beings want to do when they take over someone new, is just destroy that person, possess that person. And of course, lay hands on other people and strangle and smash head with rocks and whatever. There is no surgical, precise ways that they destroy others. They just fucking start mangling and biting and ripping apart and so on. And it doesn't matter what the host body that they possess is like, you know. They'll enter the comatose wards of hospitals and bink, this little invalid person, that skin and bone, will pop up and then start smashing through the walls and killing everyone else because of the being that is with them or inside them. Anyway, so this story goes that this unit is guarding a path or a underground area that is mined or of mines or underground caves and stuff. And militaries and sciences don't know what to do except to just guard and do research. And but they found that they can't release anybody or release those four soldiers that are possessed by some unseen spirits, each one of them, or a spirit, four beings, and those soldiers that made their way into the cave and upon other people that were possessed were immediately overtaken themselves, and the fifth soldier that was with them blew a grenade and caused the cave in. So, and then that soldier himself, mind all bent and twisted and warped and touched somehow by the depravity and brutality of the influence of the other spirits, wandered the wastelands until they were picked up by their own soldiers, and they finally figured out what happened, and then the army and the sciences and other things decided to go investigate and let's guard this place, make it a military base, and everybody guards something, and only the fifth level or whatever level is guarded. And so in the story, one soldier, after 5 days of his best friend, went down into the fifth level and did not return on scheduled time. 6, 7, 8, 9 days passed. The other friend finally got into a position to go down and to the same level, and because he was concerned about his friend. And when he was first reporting for duty on that level, someone else was standing by the door, getting ready to be relieved and to depart, and it was his best friend. So the best friend left, went to the surface, and the concerned soldier stayed on the fifth level. From this point on, screaming was heard from beyond a supposed doorway or position of rocks, and all kinds of scientific equipment pointed to, as you would probably guess, cameras and all kinds of things drilled and moved through the rock, and microphones and so on, and all kinds of things to see the soldiers just standing there and screaming, because those beings knew somehow that people would come for them. So stay there and scream for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, and going on 5+ years. So you so people know about these things. People, for whether it's this story or countless of other stories across the internet, some people think that, well, we're mankind, we have technology, and we have our smartphones, and we have our guns, and we have our processed foods and our fabricated clothes and everything. We are the best, and we can eventually trap anything and study it and weaponize it and destroy our enemies and so on and so forth. Not good. When I first heard about this particular brand of fallen mangels or bangles or something, or an angle, or two or three or four that had fallen, or some other great gods or beings from the past that were condemned or doomed or whatever, somehow, some way, and were imprisoned. Maybe escape from time to time, but enterprising, smart humans always find a way to re-imprison said beings, and they are stupid, especially after a big time gap of being trapped somewhere. Some of those beings become some of those beings are what you would call a ghost. They are spirit, but they can pick up things and throw them. They can destroy humans, break them, crush them, bend them in half, whatever. They can even enter into other living people and overtake them, and then use their memories and their feelings and start to feed on and feast upon their soul and their mental and physical and spiritual and other things that make up the human being person. And they can also pass on these things to other or to their friends. So you'll have to consider that birds of a feather. Those are nice little whimsical platitudes and all that, but in cases like this of some military guarding some base and beings had entered into humans, and everything had to be guarded and secured. Then one soldier went down looking for his friend and ended up staying for a day or 2 or 3 on that same level, not just meters, 20, 30, 40, 50 feet away from that doorway where everybody had their guns pointed towards. And there was an old time small canister cannon. Everybody knows how big a coffee can is. Everybody knows how wide a coffee pot maker is, or so on. There are small cannons in many armies of the world today that you can move those little cannons around on their bicycle wheels, pre-position some type of small little oatmeal size canister or something that the shell stands 2 or 3 feet tall or 2 or 3 feet long, and put that into the breech and push it up, and then put in a plug of gunpowder, and then close everything, and it's cock it or somehow, and it's ready to fire. Mankind today thinks that power comes from projectiles like that, of making big compression inside a hardened steel and other alloys chamber, and then the projectile shoots out at thousands of feet per second speed and will destroy Godzilla or Leviathan, or will demolish Statue of Liberty's size, or will demolish great beasts and serpents and stuff that stand as tall as the Eiffel Towers or the World Trade Centers and so on, or other humans. No. When you are dealing with beings from the past and see with your own eyes how four beings would limp along or run along, or however fast their host bodies allowed them to do. But then, you're spending energy from the host body. You're also consuming energy, and little by little that host body starts to wear out, deteriorate. You've seen the zombie movies and so on, if you believe those incidences, those very beings themselves, and incidences throughout our history have also taken place, but are only retold within the lore and realm of science fiction and entertainment and so on. But that's a different subject. So I'm speaking of being drawn to finding this one story and then listening to it because I thought it was a stupid story. Once again, talking about these 9 hikers that were in Russia mountains, and men and women in sub-zero temperatures, hardy mountaineering outdoorsy people wearing clothes, several layers of clothes, living in little 10 by 10 tent all together and in sleeping bags and so on. In the cold, that's the type of outdoors people that pretty much exists today with many of the outdoors people that live like that. Um, and suddenly those people just were somehow overtaken by something, and those 9 people in various states of undress, or they were resting or sleeping. Someone was eating. So they had meal of food that was ready to be consumed, but all of a sudden they literally cut themselves, burst themselves, pushed with hands out and ripped through the tent of their or the fabric of their tent. They tore it open. They ran out from their warm tent, however you would define warm to be, out in the cold, into sub-zero weather. About 3 of them were just socks, uh, undies on, tops and bottoms, nothing else. They fucking ran 3, 4, 5, 6 miles down the mountainside. Somebody was killed at the tent site. A few more somehow died or were killed as they ran and escaped. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. People were still running. 4 of them made it down to the tree line a few miles away. Still dark, still through waist deep snow. Whoever these kids were, these survivors, whether they were completely dressed somehow or naked, 2 were left at the tree line. Start a fire if you can. Stay here. We will come back for you. And 2 kids went back up to the hillside or mountainside to find their friends or something. And everybody died. So there's speculation about that event, about what really happened. Some people say UFOs, and it ignited something within all the kids and made them burn from within and so on. That's why everybody suddenly left, and energy weapons and so on. And well, Bigfoot overtook them. And the current theory is about that 9-person 1959 1960s era mountain pass incident over in Russia, as these kids were sleeping, what you and I would call, if you live in a modern house, the roof above you, 8 feet, 9 feet, 10 feet above, on a A-framed house. These kids slept underneath, close to the house. Or so that's how the terrain was for those conditions, and where those kids' tent was, against the rock or against some little slope face. And modern
Sergey smiled.
modern
Soldiers here, Private.
modern forensics says that those kids um, were all together in one tent, but then from the sloping of the surface above them, started to pack and pack and pack and pack and pack tall of snow over hours or days, even before those kids got there and picked that one particular uh, little shelving, a small little clearing area against a mountain rock wall or something. And then above them was the sloped terrain that was packed deep with snow. Those kids experienced the movement of the snow and the ice all of a sudden, and it dropped down on them and crushed them. That's why they were suddenly um, uh, driven out of their tent, or so they say, because some of those one of those kids was dead there in the tent, crushed skull or something. All the kids had broken bones, injuries. Some were in states of undress or something, but nobody really knows why. Nobody knows where the radiation burns on all of those kids, where it came from. And nobody says or knows why one girl's face was ripped off or, uh, you know, degloved, or all the flesh ripped out, and why some other kids experienced defleshing of some kind, or but there was no other tracks or nothing except for those kids, or at least that's what investigators saw in the snow. So no Bigfoot tracks, no Yeti, no livestock or goats or horses or anything, just tracks of those kids, all leading from the mountain and from their so anyway, then this story, or some writer happens to summarize something else that happened, and so my grandfather knew what happened in the Dyatlov Pass incident, where those kids died. So actually, there's this other story built up, and go see it or go find it if you can't. I showed you the HoobTube link. Go find this video while you can, and listen to it and watch it and make your own conclusions, or draw from what you already know about things that have happened. So this one soldier in this story here says that he was a positioned in the mines, and a day later, or hours later, after he was standing around in the mines, meters away from the little doorway, or the pile of rocks that was leaning up against and piled against the cave passageway, and basically shit happened, or something happened, and pretty soon the screaming that was on the other side of the rock pile, but loud enough to be heard for 5 years, suddenly the screaming got louder, and then the screaming would stop, and then suddenly somebody else close by would start to would drop dead, and then suddenly pop back to life, and the screaming would take over again. So that's what got my attention. Why would something in some story or fiction from a strong basis of truth in real life, from a biblical or otherwise some other people's storyline, that it truly happened to them, or they know about it, or these things or these beings that somehow were discovered because of an incident like this. For so those former soldiers that were screaming for 5 years, they broke through the break in the rocks, or somehow shit happened, and they broke free or got free, or some other human on the other side of the rock pile got too close. And that's really all you need when you have some beings. They're limited by the flesh body. They are great in spirit when they are away from the body, and they are in and of themselves uh, human shape and form. But a spirit, if you were to look at them and see them, probably moments before they jumped on you and into you. But pretty soon another soldier would just, four soldiers just drop dead, and then all of a sudden pop back up again, start screaming. And then pretty soon those four soldiers eventually would die or something and cease to scream, and then another soldier, or that group of four would jump here and there, and as they jump, always four, and happened to be soldiers at the time, or researchers, and those people, always four, a group of four. They stuck together. They didn't, two of us are going to go down here, one of you go over there, and another one go. No, 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 no. They stayed together. They were close together, feet from each other, just stayed together. They went as a group. They chased after other people. They would drop the body that they had possessed. They would, you wouldn't see anything either. Well, there was too much mayhem going on, but we know how these things go. It's a human form. It's a great being of some other kind. God of some kind, a fallen angel or something. And religionist, whether you are or not, we know what that means. We know what that is. We know who those people are. Some of you not as personally as the rest of us, but you would know. It was just four people that were trapped over the ages, condemned over the ages, sent to imprisonment somewhere, and then man comes along and digs in or explores in places that they shouldn't be, and eventually uncovers someone. Those four, or those eight, or those six, or however and wherever they are in this world, in this mortality, physicality, and wherever they are hidden away, buried, literally wrapped up or entombed somehow, and but those beings are as part of these what you call last days incidents. Even in some of the rivers over in Iraq, that Euphrates type river, rumor has it there's beings screaming from underground already, and villagers and goat herders and stuff are poking and prodding around in little networks of caves and stuff already, and pointing their cell phone cameras and hitting record, and we only see one or two of those things on the internet today. So extrapolate that story with this one that I am so fascinated in, because this soldier in the story, those four beings in the bodies of four soldiers, broke through, killed many of the other people, or took over them. Those four beings just body hopped, and killed. That tells you of some type of fallen being from the other side. It's not the devil and his angels and so on. It's a fucking human being that retains all of their mental powers, their emotional powers, what you would call spiritual powers, and their intellects and intelligence and so on. But however they are condemned, whatever state that they are in, final state before they are imprisoned, and how they are forevermore, they're not gonna stop and pick up somebody's cell phone. Oh, hey, I'm Sue from the Fourth Age. The stars in alignment were, and then they'll tell you about what North Stars that mankind was looking at, and whatever zodiac that we have, and scientists would then be able to listen to the story and extrapolate that. These people were rampaging after they were released, and then suddenly they picked up a camera or popped up on CNN somewhere and decided to tell their story for a few hours, or before they continued their rampage and destroyed humanity and so on. No. There is nothing on the mind of certain condemned people. And I call them people. I'm not calling them fallen angels. I'm not calling them the other angels of whoever. I'm not calling them any of the sons of the Watchers or whatever, because that's not my paradigm. That's not my Hunk Papa Lakota culture. And that is not my Hunk Papa, what I have seen. And I've seen shit like this happen in some of my dreams that I've had to sleep. My body goes to sleep and I observe. And I am taken somewhere, and time bubbles just open up somewhere, and I get to step in and watch and see what happens. And sometimes these stories are retold to me, redream them and so on. And I don't know why, but later on I figure out why, because everything's related. I might meet someone later on with a past that is connected to this incident or those people or something, or their people live in that place or something like that. And so everything is related to something or to someone in your own life later on that you meet. So there is no coincidence anywhere. Nothing just happens at random. No, everything is connected. Small and great things, everything is connected somehow. But anyway, so I myself have sleep dreamed crazy stuff like this that actually did happen. Hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, millions and billions of years ago on our round sphere, revolving, moving through space, not necessarily spinning around the sun. The sun is moving, but if you can put something in the... okay, you have a barrel of a gun and it shoots out a bullet, but it's not the exact center, or it's not the exact center of that rotation, but the sun is more or less on the outside or the inside of the barrel and follows that little orbit. It may be a little elliptical instead of circle, but that's what the sun does. The sun itself revolves and spins, but the sun also does these little, as if it was inside its own um, chamber or a. Anyway, that's how I see it. The sun revolves and spins, but it also moves, and if you were to align yourself behind it, you could probably say that yes, if there was a bullet inside of a gun and moves down the barrel and rotates itself and hooks into those little grooves, take out the barrel and stick the sun in the center, and however the sun moves and makes its own little spiral, because the sun doesn't just fly there. The sun is spinning, yes, but it's also doing its own little corkscrew, but it's so damn precise. And as the sun moves on its own little spiral, precise, and so it moves, but it corkscrews up and down. In fact, the sun is connected to the center of our galaxy, and the sun moves up and down and up and down around the galaxy. It takes about 250,000 years for the sun to circle once, and another 250,000 years for the sun to circle once. But the sun, as it turns in itself, as it rotates and as it moves along and it moves along in its own little spiral, in the sun's wake, you have all of these other planets that are just spinning themselves, and they are dragged along in the sun's wake. That's how our galaxy, that's how our own solar system objects move. So, mankind has been alive on this spinning globe, this sphere Earth, for hundreds of thousands of billions of years, not just 4 billion years, and the universe was created 14 billion years ago. If you're traveling from West Coast to East Coast, or if you are traveling from North Pole to South Pole, perfect world, that's what you do. No one bothers you. You and your family or whatever, you travel, you drive. You might stay somewhere in a town here or there. You'll get gas along the way. You'll stop along the way and eat in restaurants or fast food places or whatever. Maybe some friendly people will see you in public somewhere. Hey, come on over to our church gathering right now. We're all eating. So you and your family stop for a few hours, or maybe some people let you stay someplace for a night or two, and then you continue on your travels. So people are people. And you have to understand that while in this perfect world, you're going to travel. Well, as I said, if you were to travel the world or travel several time zones, that would take a week or two. Just extrapolate that as people and explorers and other humans traveling the universe or traveling the solar system. Yeah, traveling the solar system, our 9 planets, our 10 planets. Traveling outside of our solar system, going to some of the other galaxies nearby, but there really are no other galaxies nearby because once you leave our solar system, you're still in our own Milky Way galaxy. You still have to travel through the dust lane, the Perseus arm that we are within. You still have to travel to all of the, or to whichever closest star that you see in the night sky. All of the things in astronomy. So pick one and go visit it. But along the way, you're going to see other ships or other formations that our science has never heard about, never said anything. You might meet other people, but you continue your journeys, and you travel and travel, and so on. So I don't believe that this was random when I first heard of a specific story like this a few years ago and forgot about it. But then I saw some posting of some kind on the internet. It rings true to some things that I personally have experienced in sleep dream or have seen in outer body experience and otherwise know of. So, and in my little musings and wanderings that I say, whether you travel to our United States or whether you travel from pole to pole or whether you travel around the world, and if it's a perfect world and you have good experience, you meet hundreds of people and you'll stay somewhere, from time to time. And perfect world, though, at the end of your little cross continent journey or somewhere, you can look back and say, "Hey, all those wonderful people that I met or that we met," and so on. I mean, who doesn't want to have a good experience like that? And with your own life of 60, 70, 100 years, 200 years, then you pass away. But you write your little stories down, and your great grandkids and other generational uh, children pass that story along, and it survives 200 years, 300 years, 1,000 years, um, 4,000 years, 10,000 years, and so on. Perfect world. Your experiences become somebody else's survival book. Your experiences might become somebody else's scriptures, and so on. And that's the beauty of this people populated world that we live in. So, bearing all that in mind, of whether you travel across the state, across the country, across the continent that you live on, or maybe in the future when we travel to other worlds, yes, we hope to have all of these good experiences. But then we have stories like this. My progenitor knew what happened in a certain geo geophysical location, and he wrote about it in his own diary. And it turned out that the establishment had discovered four beings from the past that had somehow taken possession of or jumped into the bodies of four people, and didn't do anything. And these beings were trapped in the rock, in the tunnel, in the room, perhaps buried underneath a few rocks themselves. Maybe their bodies were damaged. Maybe they were themselves in a tunnel that was caved in, but they were alive because of the great beings that they were, that they still are. However, they are. Anyway, so they weren't just standing on the other side of a pile of rubble that blocked a cave entrance. No. They were most likely crushed somehow or semi covered by rocks or dirt, or maybe pinned by large rocks, but they were still alive. They were still controlling and feeding off of the energies and the flesh and other things that make up an individual human. So those four beings, using collective memory and so on, just decided to keep on screaming, because this type of human that we have taken over from whatever age of the planet that we are still alive on now, far different from the thousands of years ago or millions or billions of years ago, when we were alive and in the world, and we had our own physical bodies and we did our own thing, but then we sinned against whoever, or we four beings of some kind were damned and judged and imprisoned, chained, and otherwise thrown, buried, concealed, hidden, kept, locked up, and put away from the rest of human society forever. But now and then, not just those four beings, supposedly in the story like this, or in other stories that you may be aware of, or other books of scripture, or from other people's cultures and color, of one being or two or hundreds, whatever may be. So mankind is alive, in incidences small and great. You can think of for yourself all the good things that would happen when man, or when you live, or I live, or the grandkids, or grandparents, or anyone else lives for a time, for 20 years, for 100 years, and the family bloodline keeps on going through the timeline of Earth, and so on. But then, from the distant past, obviously, in this story, four people kind of fuck up somehow, and they end up together. And then they overtake four other humans as time goes by, and then they overtake four other humans, but they never separate. They never run away from each other. They stick together. And so the context of all this is, you can think of things for yourself and answer these questions for yourself. Why would four beings stay together? Why is the idea of, like in this story, 4 spirits, 4 great beings at one time, 4 gods, 4 great people from the past, of the past. And it doesn't say whether they're all male or all female. Doesn't say whether there's 3 males, 1 female. Doesn't say whether it's 1 male and 3 females. It just says, even in this story here on the internet, turns out that there's 4 people, 4 spirits, 4 entities that can drift from body to body and take over and consume that host up and keep it alive for years, for decades or so, if it has to. But they always stay together. And I'm glad that nobody really thinks about these things. Nobody really wants to know. Not even my Facebook friends are commenting about anything I write. My family thinks I'm crazy and fucked up in the head and strange and stuff. I don't care what my family thinks of me. I may be strange, but I've told my story already in the past for myself. I am aware of who I am, what I am, and the greatness that I was a part of. And part of me left who I am on the other side. Part of my consciousness came over here to this side. And following the rules of this place, following the rules of the game of life on planet Earth, I was born just like anybody else. I had to forget. For a moment, this veil of forgetfulness was placed over me, but I was not alone. Within the hour of my birth, what I call God came from the other side. And in spiritual ways, in unseen ways, without disturbing my mother and my grandmother, and without disturbing me. God from the other side, or the mother of the Hunkpapa Lakota Nation, my God from the other side, she came over, and in spiritual ways, in unseen ways, just like a normal human would do if they were picking up a child or a little infant, with love and tenderness and so on. Or it could, it could be a little puppy that they're picking up, or a little baby chick, or a little mouse, or something small and cute, something that they are going to take care of for the moment, something that they are going to address, something that they are going to communicate with. That's what God did for me, to me, with me. My little infant body slept. My mother's mortal body slept and rested. My grandma was also asleep, within that hour or so. Or whatever happened within that hour of my birth. God came over to this side. And in spirit, however gods do those things, the Mother Goddess picked me up like she would, or like you would pick up a little infant lovingly and with care and stuff. Spiritually, nobody saw a damn thing, because this happened in spirit, this happened in unseen ways. Mother Goddess cradled me, and she sort of woke me up spiritually, my little infancy. I did feed, yes. She did cradle me and care for me, skin to skin, held me over her shoulder fed me for a few minutes or so, held me over her shoulder, what you do with infants, and treated me like that. And then the full-grown mortal godmother that is trillions upon trillions of Googleplex years old, even according to God's way of timekeeping, she's old, but she's still young. And young woman that she was and still is, the goddess rolled me out of her arms. I rolled out of her arms and stood up in front of her. I was a full-grown person. I was still asleep. I had just been born. My awareness and everything great and grand about me was asleep. I was supposed to be inside of an infant body, and then be inside a child's body, and then a young adult's body, until that body would grow up into maturity somehow, and then it would match the stature. It would match the stature of, or similar to, or something similar to how I am on the other side. Basically, we are all in human form. We are also similarly possessed or entered into by our own selves on from the other side. I hate to break it to you, but for some of you, it's good news. For some of you that don't like your bodies, or you don't like being so short, or anything like that, your God self on the other side, we are much, much taller than currently we are in physicality. You are much more handsomer, more beautiful. You are a fucking physical specimen. You are a work of art. Whatever sex of, or however your God person on the other side, quote unquote, as far as gender or not, whatever you chose to be billions and billions and billions of ages ago, because we have all existed from billions and billions and trillions of years ago until now, we connect part of our consciousness and move it somewhere to some physical or into any one of the dimensions, and there's lots of them. There's dozens of them. There's a few hundred or so. Different kinds of experiences and existences, and not just what we perceive as mortality, not just as what we see in physicality. There's a cardboard box made out of pulp wood, destroyed and stewed, and however trees are made from pulp mills. This box used to be a tree. These wood here used to be a tree. These fabrics come from wood as well. These fabrics most recently are plastic, but these fabrics, even a few hundred years ago, came from various worms and silkworms and so on, and other plants and other forms of wood and fibers and stuff. Everything that we have in our little existence from a few hundred years ago to even now is things that are physicality. So, but anyway, but you all know this. So I was awoken. I was woke up. I was awakened. This has not happened to me in every other experience or any other time that my greatness or my godhood or my God self ever connected to a mortal body here on earth. Yeah, a few times in the past here and there, but between each awakening, I was just another asleep mortal with varying amounts of wakefulness or woke. But for this life right now of 1967, and our time frame is way off because of the current fealty or the current leadership of this world. Bad people are in charge of everything right now, and they themselves fucked up some things. We're not in the proper time frame. It's not 2023 right now. Mm-mm. Anyway, so, but I'm just saying. So for myself, I woke up. I was allowed to wake up, and right now for my mortality life, I can't go back to sleep. So I make the most of it, and from that day one, from hour one, I have been awake. Doesn't mean that I know every fucking thing in the universe, but it just means that your clarity is a bit more. That if you want to learn about something, you just have to focus and, you know, tell your God or tell Mother or tell the object that they left for you or let you have access to. Uh, and you have to meditate and pray and bring it out from yourself and honestly ask the universe or ask your God, what is this? I just saw something new on TV. I never heard of it. Can you please tell me about that? That's how I learned. I may have seen a TV show or heard a radio program when I was a child and had no idea or clue what was going on. But that's how I first learned about this world. That's how I first learned about these things that what we see now on YouTube or HoopTube for stories and for incidences, or to watch instructional videos of welding, swimming, crochet, drawing, canning foods, and so on, herding cats, whatever subject. There is a few hundred videos for each subject. But when I was a child, in my I was a child for my first year, second, and third year. After that, I started to ask because from day one, there was always somebody from heaven, my God, that came to me from the other side within the hour of my birth, and she picked me up, cradled me, whatever, did whatever, yada yada, and then just like you would roll out a sleeping bag that was rolled up and curled up. Or if you stood at the end of your bed and folded up all your bedding nice and neat, and then you rolled it up towards you and picked it up at the end, and then you go somewhere else and you gently roll it out and it unrolls and bang. And that's what happened to my infant body. Not so much my body, but my spiritual infant self. I rolled out of the goddess mother's arms. I was still asleep, but noticing that I was in the presence of greatness, I started to wake up. So, for myself, I am awake and I am aware. Most people right now in the year 2023, they don't give a shit to talk about things like this. To see it on HoopTube or to see any subject of theirs that interests them, they don't care. Normal people are asleep at 8 or 9 or 10 at night. They'll sleep through till 6 or 7 in the morning. They'll sit up from bed suddenly, stand up, make their bed, go into the bathroom, uh, shit, shower, shave, and come into the kitchen, cook breakfast, uh, and eat it. And within that hour, they're dressed and they're out the door. And they work all day, 8 hours. They work 10 hours, they work 12 hours. They go home, they watch a few hours of TV or something, you know. They're in bed by 10 p.m., sleep till 6 in the morning, and that people do that for 30 years, 40 years. Or people will work at many jobs throughout their whole life, but that's what they do. They wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning, work 3 jobs in a 18-hour period, go home, unwind for an hour or two on watching TV or gambling or something or whatever they do, but then they go to sleep for a few hours, wake up, and they're at it again for 12 hours, 15 hours, 18 hours. They'll do that off and on. Wow. They'll do that for their whole life. They'll do that 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, then retire. And a few years later, they die. So, and they don't consider anything about what us strange people experience ourselves or what we talk about. They don't even. Normal people are brainwashed. That's my opinion. In my 55 something years of sleeping throughout the night, I've come to know some secrets. And it's not world changing and it's not life altering events for anybody. You want to know one of those secrets are? We are social beings. We are human beings. Right now, all we know is this physicality. This place is all that we know right now. When you sleep, your body and maybe your consciousness, or most of your consciousness, that is rooted here in this reality and stays here. Most of you or yourself, most of yourself is asleep. But some deep parts of you sits up and you stand up. You will rise up above your house top, your rooftop. Part of yourself in that spiritual form, it doesn't go back to your God. It doesn't go back to anywhere else. It just obeys some of its own needs and wants. You're a human. We are mostly social. we all have sleep dreams that are mostly it's like those carnival rides. You get in carnival ride, and then you have the ride somewhere through the fun house, and all these other creatures and critters, or a dinosaur head pokes out at you. A saw blades in front of you, and coming closer, and then it goes up and goes away, and it doesn't kill you. Good things. Every one of us has many of those experiences. Once a night, per sleep session. So we have those sleep dreams, and we dream. It's just that many people, they don't remember. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to know about it. That's just a strange subject to them. They'll sleep for a few hours. They'll wake up. They'll work again. 12 hours a day, 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day. They'll do that 40 or 50 or 60 years, retire for many more years, and then die. I don't understand people like that. But we all sleep dream somehow. Our spirit, if you would use that word, gets up and goes out and seeks other people. I can promise you that. You may be surrounded by neighbors and stuff, and wherever you live, if you live in a town, or if you live in a big apartment building with hundreds of floors and hundreds of people, whether or not you talk to them, whether or not you get along with them, or any of these neighbors, most of us, most of you, when you sleep, some part of you gets up, moves out, drifts out there like a little ghost or something, and you seek out other people. You're not talking about the daisy fits. Well, my body is sleeping right now, and then I work 18-hour days. I make, 20, $30 an hour per job. I've got 3 mortgages. I've got 4 kids. I have $50,000 car or whatever you got. Oh, hey, I'm strapped. I've got drugs right now. I gotta move. I gotta sell them. You don't talk about things like that. You don't talk about the physicality, worldly, stupid things of this game of life. You're talking about higher things. You're talking about things that only you, under hypnosis, most likely, to help you recall what you're talking about. That's what you talk about. I mentioned this in a media post a year ago, 2 years ago. Here in McLaughlin, South Dakota, on a reservation, and I mentioned this in a post that of what I just said. And I mentioned it from my own viewpoint and my own abilities and my past experiences with out-of-body experience, and eventually in a restful state. You can get up, and you can send some part of you out there, and it looks for other people that are most likely sleeping. And these people can be your neighbors. These people can be your enemies. These people can be old. These people can be children. These people can be infants. But in honesty and in goodness and in all of those godly things, when someone is standing around somewhere, floating around, flying around, other people are gonna, from different houses, from the bodies of your neighbors, some parts of them are gonna pop up. They are higher selves of whomever. It doesn't matter if they're little infants. You're gonna get a full-grown adult pop up in front of you. Oh, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. I hurt. It's your new body. It's just you were born 3 weeks ago. You're gonna experience pain for the first 8 years of your life. And even now, your first 2 years, your first year of life, you're going to be screaming and crying your head off. You're going to have all that tooth pain and all that pain in your head and your shoulders, your hips and your knees. Perfect world, perfect body. And that person's going to respond, yeah, that's what I was told. Oh, I know that. I've had this happen to me before when I was, yeah. Let me tell you, people are social. So you may confab, you will meet other people, whether or not you remember these things from your sleep or from a nap. You can be an asleep person, not awake to deep things or to spirituality or whatever. You'll take a nap for 20 minutes and then you'll pop up. You didn't just lay down, your body did. Fucking some part of you popped up, looked around. You found several people from the neighborhood or maybe some other adventurers from across the state. The occasional other visitor from off-world will also cross paths with you. As far as people go. So that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna get really weird and sexual about things and well, why am I meeting up with men and women? No, you don't. It's not a Tinder, but it is a My Pillow type of thing. So I'm talking about many things, weird things, but I'm talking about the human condition. So it's interesting that I would have something like this cross my lane of a story that was drawn up from an actual incident that is posted right here in red of some hikers overseas in Soviet Russia that were hiking somehow and camped out in camped on a little bluff or a ledge somewhere right next to a wall of ice and rock, and then overhead like a sloped portion of your house or something, a little bit higher up, meters up. The kids didn't know. The kids didn't think about it. Terrain is terrain. Those kids had camped in various rocky or in caves. They had camped out in open. They had camped out with trees around them. They thought they would be fine, but the layers and layers of or feet of ice and snow, or in that manner of context, slid off of the slope above them and dumped tons of snow and chunks of ice upon them, uh, compressed them, broke many of their bones. We still don't know why it degloved people's body parts or ripped one girl's face off or something. Why it broke ribs and internal injuries. Uh, why the radiation burns, we don't know. Uh, why a few of them attacked their own their own camping partners, and 9876 fled the campsite and ran several miles, but somebody would uh, drop along the way, or just dropped or died or something, and 4 or 5 made the ridge line, tree line, and then 2 were told, well, you make a fire here or start building yourself a shelter here. I mean, who's gonna be, well, what the fuck you got with you when you run uh, uh, from the darkness out into sub-zero darkness? You just have one sock on, you have your BVD shorts on, that's it. Or maybe the snow that crushed your tent and moved everything in the tent, and moved your friends and colleagues out of the tent, or so on. It ripped off other people's clothes or something. What? After running out in the cold and strong as you might be, and you're tough, and you can, your bones are broken or something. You're pulling one of your friends. How in the world are you going to build a fire? How are you going to make camp or something? Oh, how are you going to get shelter going? So anyway, from that one incident, then some author decided to make a ghost story or a funsy story out of it. And that kind of caught my attention a year ago or 3 years ago. And then I saw the story again within a year ago. And then I saved it on this some device or something. And now I talk about it for like the 3rd time. But within this story is the premise that 4 beings, 4 beings in the mountain were happened upon, or some people stumbled upon 4 beings, and were immediately taken over. Their physicality was possessed. They acted strangely. They did all kinds of convulsions and writhed around on the ground for a second or two, and then stumbled up, and they were possessed. Any living colleague next to them that was a survivor or that ran away would observe that their friend or their relative or so acted like they were convulsing, and strong fit, strong, what do you call it, seizure of some kind, bashed their head here and there as if something was and then stopped. Their eyes were their eyes were not their eyes. You knew that when you looked at the person, they were dead, but there was something living inside them, something that had taken over their consciousness, or something that took over their physical body, their physicality. So from history and from our other knowledge base of things of this world that we live in, or from our own cultures, we can extrapolate just exactly the fuck what happened, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why myself. Like I said, some of my sleep dreams and many of my out of body experiences and or other questions were answered when I asked about them. And I have asked again, can I see this one thing again? It relates to something else I'm interested in, but I want to know what. And then, of course, God, or the universe, or the people that are with you right now. Because right now, as I speak, in the context of what I have said in the past, I am not alone. The mother goddess came to my mother and my grandmother and myself when I was born. I was picked up in spirituality and spirit by the godmother, by my god, the female, which tells me that I'm not just somebody from the other side that happened to be born an Asian, or somebody that happened to be born an Australian or some other Pacific Islander person, and I am whatever those people are now, or that my um, higher power, higher person self from the other side was born some type of white person over in Europe somewhere, uh, or that I wasn't born in the northern parts of the earth, that I right now am not some type of Inuit or Inupiaq or any other type of First Nations Arctic, high Arctic native. um, this experience of having a god come over to the other side and awaken me, that tells me that sure, in my body with my supposedly brown skin, my red skin, my native culture that I was born into, um, that I am right now at from birth to 55 years and something months, that I am native, that the brand of native that I am, I'm not just passing through this skin color and this body type and this gender, quote unquote, and all of the other intellect or emotional or spiritual, physical, whatever. Great things or, blessings that I don't have of such, whatever. This experience that I had at birth tells me that I'm native for now, from birth to currently 55 years, and for the next 200 or 300 years that I will be alive. And this this experience tells me that uh, on the other side, I am a native. I'm the exact type of native on the other side that I am now. In fact, when I woke up after my God holding me in her arms and cradling me and she did feed me for a few minutes, in that way and that manner of conduct. And then she just gently rolled me out, and I stood up in front of her. And I stood up and was still asleep. And then I opened my eyes, and she touched me somewhere, and the spirituality stuff that happened, she woke me up for this lifetime. That experience tells me that I am native on the other side. I am native and in the bloodline and in the family unit that goddess was and still is today. I am exactly where I am today, where I need to be. And my family, my current family of natives through this door and to the south, across the yard and through the fence and into my mother's house, the birth mother of mine, 55 something years ago. She rested, she slept close to me. Um, she wasn't disturbed, or she didn't see what was going on with little infant me. In fact, for that first hour or so, I was uh, swaddled up, and I was still connected to the umbilical cord. So mother and my grandmother had to rest for a little while. Then they cut the cord, wrapped me up. They kept the umbilical cord for a few. They kept the whole placenta bag, the whole membrane bag for a few years, and then somebody else got rid of it. They didn't like it. It was Indian stuff. It wasn't necessary to have that. Let's throw it away. Yeah. So, like I said, you can think of your own good experiences in life and think about the human condition from any story of your own, or any song, or any play, or any movie, or something. Whatever you dwell upon, for whatever deep reasons that you would dwell upon. But I like this story only because it brings up the fact that these people in the story somehow came across four beings that took over people, but somehow they were trapped in the mountains at that particular time. It doesn't go back to the very beginning regarding these people. But you could think for yourself and reason and ascertain as to what kinds of people these were. I will help some of you along with the subject matter of fallen angels, um, great men of old, or a woman or two that were great, and they were gods themselves. They walked and talked with what you would call God of this world, or the gods that lived on this world ages ago. And for the hundreds of years or thousands of years individually that these four people lived, and from their own culture billions of years ago or millions of years ago, they were intelligent people. They grew up and experienced much in their own lifetime with their own cultures, and they could speak many languages of the day according to their time. And they had much knowledge. But, collectively, altogether, these four beings fucked up. They did something that had to be punished by the creator of all, or the granddaddy, the god of everything, or other gods that are higher than some of our gods that we know today. So, yeah. And then those things took over bodies of the other soldiers or other scientists and doctors and stuff. And then they made it to the surface. And this young soldier that was in the story here, or his people his people were fighting those other beings and luring them here or there. And then, of course, everybody realized that these things that finally got out and broke the surface, and one of the hapless groups of people, within a few days of freedom and a few days of those four beings lurching around on the mountains, they came across 9 hikers. And this one soldier saw those 4 hikers, or those 9 hikers, 9 other people die out in the woods. And that was his explanations about things. That was his a horrific discovery about things, because when those soldiers were following and tracking those 4 people across the mountains, they were horrified when those 4 beings, who had, by that time frame of a few days later or so, of breaking free from their imprisonment, initially leaving the bodies of those 4 soldiers that had been screaming at the cave entrance, or screaming under the rocks, for 5 years, and were heard by everyone. Anyway, so to the moment when those 4 beings were lurching across the snow, because their bodies that they had currently used, probably other soldiers or other scientists. It's not normal when you see 4 people out in sub-zero weather, 30 degrees below zero, 50 degrees below zero. It's really strange to see one military soldier without a weapon, nothing in their hands, but you see the uniform on them. Maybe their cover or their hat blew away, or they don't have their coat on. But they're alive and stumbling through the snow, and then next to them is a scientist. Pair of slacks on, a shirt, or maybe a white lab coat, but that's it. There's no protection. It's really strange when you see people like that, dressed like that. 4 people, because it was 4 beings, 4 condemned souls, 4 condemned human beings from hundreds of thousands of years ago, or from many millions or billions of years ago, from some other group of humans that lived on Earth and were condemned by God because of some bad thing that they did. And you can always tell the crime and punishment being what it is. What I'm saying about the not so much the crime, we all can extrapolate from any of these uh, stories of old, about the fallen angles or something that take the daughters of men to be their own and mate with them, and the mortal women, however they do it, they gestate and give birth to big babies that in physicality are pretty big. Maybe some or most of those women didn't survive their childbirth. Or you can extrapolate some other things from different stories of your own that would be equally heinous or something. But it turns out that 4 people fucked up and were imprisoned somehow. And then, of course, they took over a few dozen people over a year or two or a few months, and then, or maybe a year or two. And then they end up being stuck somewhere because one of the victims, that was a 5th person, threw the grenade and caused the cave-in and trapping or debris upon those 4 beings that had taken over the bodies of whomever. In this case, fellow soldiers of one that was found by his comrades weeks later or days later, wandering the woods, probably without a coat and jacket, and, well, soldier, where's your gun? That person's mind was so broken from that incident and all the horror of just being around these 4 condemned beings, and the influence and the negativeness that you would feel from them, the absolute filth permeating your own mind and your own makeup and your own soul. If you was around them, even if they didn't bother you, even if such beings didn't bother you, but just being around them and seeing them take over your fellow human beings or take over your family pets and dogs and be moving around in that kind of body, or your little goldfish or something, or your pet chickens or something. But then that body, or whoever's body, just breaks down quickly or not, and can't support that anymore. So those one being has to drop the body and, unseen by everyone, latch onto and go into the next human and those 4 people, those 4 beings have to stay together. So stories like this you can rewatch, rehash, rethink about some avenues of thought, some answers about other things that you may be thinking about, some insights of things relating to you and to what's on your mind, answers from that will come to you. And this can be from any incident. I'll take a marble or a rock and I'll just drop it on the ground, stare at it for a while, ponder it like I'm pondering this incidents for months, years, and I get answers off of it. I can read scriptures. I can out of body experience. Go somewhere on a high mountain here on Earth, or that used to be here on Earth, or wherever it currently is. Um, Throughout the ages, the high places become low and the low places become high. I can tell you that mountaintops that used to exist are now bottom of the sea, or even within within the earth somewhere, even under the sea, but within the earth. When Earth does its great resets and Earth does its terraforming, and the when the rocks and the rock and all the molten stuff comes up from the core of the planet, it's like really thick soup. And you know what soup is. The light filmy layer or debris or meat or bones or vegetables floating on top is uh, the soil that we are on right now. And the layers and layers of soil beneath that, and sand and muds and clays and soils, and then rock. The types of granite rocks and gravels and just rock, and miles deep, 6, 7, 8, 10 miles deep, 20, 30, 100 mile deep, thousands of miles deep of all of this stuff. But it floats upon the magma, it floats upon the lava, like debris and foodstuffs float on thick soup. So, continents, bigger pieces of continent that once existed, and that were topped by mountains that just stretched up into the upper stratosphere and higher, even high up there where there is no air, and almost going into outer space. You can go visit places of where old monasteries, or old caves and stuff, where some old guru or some person is still there in the spirit side of things, but they're still there. But if you were to actually kind of sort of look around in today's world, still there might mean that, okay, well, you know, it's at the bottom of the sea, or it's further away over in this direction, maybe at ground level or below ground level, but or maybe it's still there up in the sky somewhere, but you have to get there through the ether or through out of body experience and so on. So, whatever your experience is, whatever gets you hard, whatever gets your rocks off. But I'm not going to say any more than what I'm just fascinated by a story like this. I'm fascinated about the four beings in this particular story of fiction, but all stories are based on truth. And, yeah. And you can think as to what kinds of people that used to be and how great they were. Consider some of the strengths and high things that they had and all their gifts and possessions and powers, but they fucked up. And four of them, in their banishment, imprisonment, and punishment, was to just keep away from other people, or to have the rest of the world and humanity altogether, of this world and other worlds, forever kept from them. That in and of itself tells you about, like I said, not the crime and punishment of things, but the punishment coming from civilizations and coming from groups of humanity hundreds of thousands of years ago. Because when you raise flocks of chickens, when your cat has litters of kittens, yeah, chickens, kittens, litters of dogs, puppies, when your cows give birth to, herds of other cows, and it goes on into the future, or it comes from the past. Something begets something. Humanity is the same way. And if you think about it, Earth is much older than it currently everyone thinks it is. Many batches of humanity have been on this planet, a few billion at a time, or 40 or 50 billion at a time, or billions at a time. And then they either leave the planet, they get destroyed, they kill each other, or something else comes along, kills them. Accidents of atomic or other energetic stuff happens. There have been asteroids and other rocks and debris from space that has killed groups of humans. Uh, Zombie outbreaks, illness outbreaks, viral stuff. Everything that you can think of has more or less happened on not only this world but other worlds. I'm sorry if you can't think about these things, and especially in your own makeup, in your own head, and with your own self. Talk about it and learn about what happened. Um, you will never wake up if you can't think about the deep things. You will never wake up. It's 3 in the morning right now. It's 2:30. It's 3:36. I've been talking on my phone for 2 hours, taking up space. I'm gonna upload it to HoobTube, GoobTube, or Hopstopper, or whatever, and then later on remove from my phone. So, but if you survive this long and listening to me, know that I survived this long and longer when I look at other people's stuff, and if I'm interested in someone else's viewpoint and stuff, I too watch a video and listen to what they have to say. I don't know everything. I don't claim to, but I know about me, and I know about my culture, and I know about incidences or subjects like this. When this person says, "My grandfather knew what happened in the uh, Mountain Pass incident and had written it in his diary," But this is a completely different story about the unearthing of four beings that had taken possession of countless human forms, four at a time, because these beings were, as you would conclude, they stuck together, they stayed together, they ran like gazelles or they staggered like drunk people, depending upon the body that they forced themselves into and took over, and the eyes that they saw out of, and how they could move the limbs. And what did those people do? They didn't stop by any camera, or they didn't pick up translation or recording devices and say, "Hey, I lived like thousands of years ago," or "My name is so and so, and these are my buddies," and here's what happened. So no, when beings like that get out of hand, when beings like that enter our world and enter our reality, they're going to take over the human condition, one human body at a time. When humans today talk about chakras and the energy points or whatever you have in the body, the first one is at the base of your spine, your sacral. Uh, it's in your pelvis, shared by the lower intestinal, shared by the colon, next to your shit, uh, and your organs of pecs, and the vag, or the testes, or the seminical vessels, and whatever, the lower regions of your body. That's the first um, place. And the second is up by your belly button. The second little energy ball sits up by your belly button, along your spine somewhere. And the third one is just where you're at the end of your breastbone, that sharp pointed um, spear tip right behind your solar plexus. Or the heart, or the heart chakra, or the heart energy point, or whatever your words you use to call it. The fourth one is up by your throat. It's just at the base of your throat. And then the fifth one is just right there at the base of your spine. It's up just a little bit higher. It's not at your throat, but it's up just a little bit higher behind your teeth. But it's, these energy things are along your spine. They start at your asshole. They start at your sacrum and are up along your spine, 7 different places, or something like that. And then there's another one and behind your eyes. It sits right with your pineal gland or so. And then the other one that's at the top of your skull. It's the crown of your head. It's the crown chakra, or whatever words you use to talk about the energy places, or the things of your spine, and whatever you believe about how those energy points or root places or of your being, your core, as far as your physical body goes. One of the weakest points to be taken over is actually not in your head. And if you watch a few of those horror flick films where you have the viewpoint of the demon as it circles the group of people that are gathered around the seance table, and it circles and circles, and then it hits the floor, it goes underneath, it goes into the ground, and then pops up from underneath everyone. You gotta watch things like that. When the enemy chooses to hit you or strike, it's gonna strike you from behind, from underneath, come at you from low. Or if some other great being decides to attack you or take you over or confront you, it's going to hit you at the first, what you call energy point or something, or your first root chakra. Even though over the years you may have constant heart pain or stomach pain or pain around here, or you've got migraines and so on, and the devil gets into you and your head. No. When something finally, suddenly and domination-wise gonna come get you, it will attack you from behind. You won't see it, but if you are awake and aware to things, you will be aware that something is watching you that's gonna strike. And then that's why all these strange people that believe in these different fields of study of esoteric things, they're gonna say, well, just envision a light cone around you and it's this color, and then a bigger field around that will be blue or green or yellow. You'll have 7 of those energy cones around you, or 7 nesting dolls within a nesting doll, and you're at the very center. Yeah, stuff like that. And I don't believe in stuff like that, but in some ways, Hank Papa Lakota, I would believe in spiritual, weird subjects like that. And a story like this just puts these things that I have seen or needed to know an answer of from my own Lakota culture, from my own past life, or 2 or 3 or 4 that I have lived and experienced, and I ask myself why. So what did these people do, or what did I do in the past with something that what can I learn from that? So then I am shown, and that's why I remember not hundreds of past lives, thousands of past lives. And just like work schedules, just like sports games or something, you send a certain group of people in for certain play positions, whether offensive or defensive, or for certain innings, or for first, second, third, fourth, fifth quarters, or whatever. You send certain people in at any given time, so you can come into this physicality experience from the other side, or you can drop into any lower, lesser experience from the other side. But you often have to do that because you're going to help out that place that you live in. You are going to help out certain groups of people or certain people. You are always there to help. You are always there to do something good. I will not talk about the negative people, the murderers, the NPC type of people that are just horrific. The non-player character people of any situation and any group of humanity anywhere that are just murderers, selfish people. They take life away of other NPC people, or they even will have murdered or consumed or otherwise chopped up, gotten rid of, or premature exit or premature death that they have done and cause pain and suffering of even good, enlightened people and godly people that were supposed to be there in that world or upon earth at any time that they were before they met with murder or otherwise evil demise. I'm not going to talk about things like that. You've already pretty much are addressing these things and have already addressed those things for yourself. In some other place or some other way, I have seen something. 4, maybe 6, maybe 7 other people that pissed off God or the gods for some pretty murderous bad things that they did. And they were collectively condemned or banished from society or from reality of any at any given moment or time. The gods can boot out any such people that warrant that punishment to happen. You already know that. That's where you think that you get the ghost stories, but not every ghost story. Or he was condemned to wander the outer world from this reality. There's much deeper things that go on and darker places and much more abandoned and forgotten and specially built places that do harbor, that do hold and never let go of anyone or any small group of people that are condemned to its place. But this one story, that's what draws my interest as part of the story goes. Why the fuck do 4 beings suddenly appear after millions, billions, or thousands of years? In the modern day, how did they get out of the rock slide roof cave-in that they experienced after the 5th soldier that was looking for somebody else saw his 4 colleagues get attacked by something? He pulled a grenade and activated it, threw it, and ran, and caused the cave-in. And debris and rocks fell upon those 4 beings, which happened to be his 4 soldier buddies. And then a modern day army gets involved and sets up facilities and guards said facilities and guards the cave-in room level 5 for the past 6 years or 5 years of all this taking place. And then those beings suddenly somehow get free. And they take over everyone in front of them, killing dozens and dozens of soldiers by that takeover, hostile, tearing their way into consuming as they tear their way into the chakra, through the auric fields of each person that each person does have, from sacral root 1, or from the from the sacrum, or uh, into the pelvis area. And you can write books about things like that. The answer is right in front of you when you need to go after somebody. Finally, or immediately, or to cause great damage, you fucking go for the family jewels, or you take their tendons and whatnot, um, where the legs attached to the torso. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you can extrapolate all kinds of answers to everything, to combat, yeah, or to whatnot regarding that. You just come from behind, you come from the side, you take people's jewels and privates, uh, go up through the ass and into the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and yeah, energy points of the body, destroy and consume all of that along the way. You enter into the brain, which is the last part, and you've got control of the human. But that in turn, in telling of this story or any other story, it lets you know what kind of people or what kind of beings that these people once were, or that tells you what kind of people, yeah. So anyway, and if you read and study about history, and you need to read and fucking study about history, or get your hands on everything you can and study, read, and keep your mind open about not only your culture but other cultures. Yes. Then you'll go to your own self, or you will go to your own God, creator, that is on the other side. Or you will go to, you can even go to the other side if you are awake, and answer every darn question. Whether it's a silly question, or whether it's the deepest question you will ever have regarding yourself and your past, present, and future. But these beings that took over pretty much every soldier in that facility, from 5th level, 4th level, 3rd level, 2nd level, and then they broke out from the 1st level, and it started chasing many soldiers out of the facilities, out of the base, and across the landscape, which was sub-zero weathers. And of course, maybe one of their own would get shot, or grenade damage, or the body would get killed. But there was always another human somewhere close by, so three overtaken bodies, three possessed people would stumble along. The fourth disembodied spirit would stay along with them, and then immediately hop into the closest whole, undamaged, terrified human, and then make them flop around, seize, and whether their body could accept that disruption, raping of, because graping has nothing to do in the context of male upon female contextual violence and penetration and so on, in that sense of using it when you are describing some being or a former human from some distant, far ancient family grouping of or past life on this earth before they themselves fucked up somehow and were condemned by the gods or God or their culture gods or even themselves, and were either banned, banished, or buried, or cast away, or otherwise concealed. Why weren't they sent to the sun or to the moon or something? But then again, you've got answers to your own questions. Because I have answers to my own questions about incidents and things like these. But yeah, just looking at the story at face value, you've got to wonder, well, who are these people? Who are these four beings? Who are these four people before they became the monsters that they are now? And why are they disembodied now? Does that mean that they are so old and ancient that their physical bodies that they once had, that they may have inhabited for hundreds of years or for thousands of years before they finally decayed and wasted away and were stuck upon possessing, taking over other physicality bodies? And that's what they were stuck with. And you know, that's the thing about this story of this group of soldiers. They were sent to level 5, and those closest to the cave-in area and to the doorway or the entranceway or to closest proximity of where the screaming was coming from. It was just screaming. And in fact, they knew who it was, or at least knew that it was four soldiers from some other group of soldiers from a few years previous that had disappeared, and it turned out they were the ones. And then they found the fifth colleague or fifth soldier of the four that were screaming. And then why? Why were they screaming? Why didn't they say, "Hey, I'm Private Dimitri," or whoever, using whatever that person, human body's name was at the time, whether it was from 5 years before, or whether it was some goat herder from 100 years ago, and that was still alive, or the body was, or whether it was some king or queen or some deaf mute or someone from some other part of the world that just happened to end up with the other three colleagues of theirs or something, because birds of a feather flock together. So the four condemned beings, or the four fallen angels, or the four demons, or the four something, they used to be human. However long and however long lived the body of any hapless human at the time, you have to wonder, why couldn't they just all stop screaming? Why couldn't the four beings stop screaming and then try to rationally communicate? You got to know that, as the story moves on through time, eventually it's going to be Spaceman Spiff, some type of his buddy Buck Dodgers, some type of an officer, since we're talking military, since we're talking a group of people wandering around somewhere, some type of a Captain Shirk or Captain Jerk, or and maybe some type of a clean on, or maybe some other space person from a different part of the galaxy or somewhere. And you know where I'm going with this. But this story could have kept going on and on into the future, and then space people and their little space suits, and they come across something, and beings jump into their body or their psyche, and then eventually someone has to, or someone's dead body, someone's possessed body happens to have some type of whether it's a little communicator that was attached to the uniform, or a communicator device that was either implanted in the brain, or some other little implantation that's outside of the body or something. Oh, no, this mean, little space Raj or someone has some type of. So why can't those four beings, whether it's Stone Age or Middle Age, Iron Age, Medieval Age, our age, or something, old age, why can't they just stop screaming and using either technology? Oh, hey, this body I just took over, it's got a space communicator, but. We'll talk to that starship that's circling the planet every 5 minutes. They'll beam us out of here. Yeah, right. You can see where that would go. The whole crew of the ship would get taken over. All right, let's beam into this other galaxy, or else we'll wormhole travel. Us four condemned fallen beings will escape this planet and go through this wormhole and bypass trillions of other places where they could stick together, but yet go through the whole population. And so why are they screaming? Why are they not doing anything but just screaming? Whatever body they take over, whatever skin color, whatever tongue that person is or speaks, the beings can't just stop, become civilized, or try and act civilized, try and be rational, and make communication with whomever, or get out of their situation they are in, or otherwise communicate with the world around them and explain who the fuck they are, why they were originally condemned or placed in somewhere, or how they got out of, and then they got trapped somewhere else by some smart humans. Why do these beings not communicate? So that's just one of the questions that I have regarding this story. Why do these soldiers in this story were screaming for 5 years after they happened upon another group of four trapped miners, or four other villagers from that region that they were in, deep within the mines, or four other mine workers. They came across four other people, and four or eight or a dozen other people before came across four possessed people who incidentally were human at one time before they were all possessed, before four of them. Yada, yada, yada. Going back 10, 20, 50, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000, 20,000. Why were they screaming? So that in and of itself tells you that these beings that took over any type of human, nearby human, and from the weakest point in the body on up into the brain and booting out the consciousness, because the brain is, or at least we think that it is, behind the eyes, just above the teeth, just behind the eyes, in between the eyes, below the top of the head, just to the left of the right ear. I am to the right of the left ear. I am above my fat chin. I am above my hand. However, my self also extends out into this left arm, also extends out into this right arm. Myself also, its appendages and so on, also extend downward through the legs, through the body and the legs, and stops at the feet of. That is the width and breadth of my current habitation here in physicality. But if you ask me where I am, I'm right here. Some people would also say, I'm right here, this is me. And they point to their heart, or they motion to where the emotions, where their feelings and stuff typically originate. It's up here. Your consciousness is up here. Mostly. So then all those people here and there are taken over. One group's taken over. They rampage for a while. And then smart humans finally decide, well, let's just trap them again. Somehow, somewhere, you can't kill them, because every time you kill the body of whomever, 4 more of us suddenly become taken over. And suddenly those 4 stick together somehow, and those 4 do nothing but scream. Inhumane scream. You can hear the torment. You can hear the pain. You can hear the terror that they themselves feel. You can hear the absolute utter emptiness, the desolation. There is nothing human at all about the screams coming from those 4 people in the story. But if you think about that, and say the story was true, or even with immediate members of people around you, and say that you were one of those survivors that was running from these 4 people, or, yeah, if you were somehow some type of soldier or police or citizen that had to catch the attention of those 4 people, whomever they were at that given time, you would have to draw their attention, become the bait, pursue them, throw rocks at them, whatever, and see that they're just doing nothing but screaming from the depths of their soul, from the very depths of hell, you would say. They just scream out loud, ah, and it doesn't go on for a few 10 seconds. They're just howling literally for a minute or 2. You yourself can't draw a breath, and even barely, you can't even, well, I can't, I'm a smoker, but and my lungs are still healing, and I can breathe out and sing, and I am singing, so I know, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I'm making some little vocals and phrases and stuff, and extending it out and regaining my wind back. So but healthy, normal people, good, strong people that would be able to just scream out. It doesn't. They can't scream out more than a minute or two or three before they have to stop and catch their breath. And you've got these beings of any given time frame along that when they break out, and together four of them, that they take over four other humans, and in turn they have to take over another human when the the body they have decides to either break down and totally stop functioning or something. But that begs the question, why are they screaming? Even from the very depths of hell, why are they screaming? Why can't they just stop and share their story about what happened? Because maybe the answer to such things, maybe the answer to their pain would be in sharing of the story so that decent, compassionate people would have information to go on from their story. But then again, that would enlighten the world, even from that horror story, as to who these people are, how long they've been alive, quote unquote, upon Earth, how long they've passed through the human condition, from four groups of humans every few years or every few hours since God knows when. But those people just screaming, and they don't bother to stop somewhere and pick up a device or start recording each other. We now have a Facebook Live today. I am and this is ooh, and we have og and und, and we are from the second group of humans ever 30,000 billion years ago. We walked with God. We were God. We were His trusted people, or one of them, or four of them, something. Then we fucked up and were condemned to. Yeah, well, why wouldn't normal, smart people would want people of that condemnedness or damnedness to not be buried somewhere on the planet? I mean, even today, 2023, of sixth or seventh most recent planetary reset or extinction that we are aware of, because there has been more. This isn't the fourth group of humanity. This isn't the third or the fifth or the sixth. We've been long on this planet for a long time. But those people are from time before time. They won't stop and somewhere along the way and communicate who they are, what the age of Earth's timeline they are from, their names, origins, what countries and stuff, and what peoples they happen to be on, what the polar or northern stars that we looked at the time frame, which closest, what you call the timekeepers stars out there. There's at least 3 dozen right now around us. If you don't believe me, at least 12 or 15 are inscribed upon that, I want to call it a Viking lander, one of humanity's space probes that was sent out in the 1970s. The golden record is on there. Thousands and thousands of uh, um, audio recordings of various humans saying hello or saying something in their multi-language tongues. There's recordings of and videos of um, cows, sheep, horses, whales, birds, people, vehicles moving. Little snippets of industry and jobs that people are doing and whatnot. Uh, Thousands of recordings of those, audio and video, and then, uh, well, we sent nudes out there into the universe too, because there's a naked man and a naked woman. Uh, um, and other information upon the plaque inscription. But from our recent time frame, there's also 12 of the quasars, 12, maybe 15 of the quasars around us in all directions. They are the longest lasting, slowest burning stars around, or some types of stars. They last the longest. That is why science at the time frame of mid 1970s decided to include the engraving that showed at least a dozen of those closest quasars to us, the timekeepers of the universe, because they don't burn out as fast as everything else. And they've been around in our neck of the woods for a long, long time. So that little aliens from trillions of years from now will be able to look upon the golden records and to hear all of the audio recordings, see all of the audio and video, visual things from humanity time frame, and see the nudes upon the outer plaque of that little orbiter ship that was sent by us. But as I said, they would be able to see. And likewise, why can't those four people stop their fucking screaming in their story and then tell all of who they are, what they are, what race, what creed, color, tongue, list some of their lineage, also say what stars were overhead and what stars were the North Star at their time frame when they were upon this earth. Which would include information regarding what quasars at the time were burning, what other cultures in the solar system and the other nearby solar systems were alive, their names, and a little brief history of what was known about them, and any technology or whatever at the time, basic cultural knowledge. Why can't they stop and explain to the rest of us before they keep on wilding, before they keep on raging? So, or actually, maybe some of us have been uh, wondering things like these over the years and then go running off to their source and asking why, or can you show me something? Can you tell me? Because I'm interested. And this relates to my own culture. I'm awake and I need help. So, and then your own source or your own God helps you. So, incidentally, some of us have um, started to do such things about something or the other. But this story, in and of itself, points to the idea that yes, there are some murderous things, murderous humans that fucked up, humans that were great people at one time, thousands of years ago, or millions of years ago, and that were condemned. They were finally brought to justice. Four of them, incidentally, happened to be. Four of them were chained up, were bound up, tied up, uh, whether physical restraints or metaphysical restraints or energy, free energy, things that were bound to them and would take great energy of anyone else trying to free them, or sophisticated devices, or any other high technology, or even usage of energies and um, other uh, other ways from uh, what you would call other arts and crafts or magics or black magics or blood magics or something bad uh, that we ourselves don't know right now. Thankfully, would take to break those people out of their physical restraints and allow them to rampage and four at a time take over four hapless human beings, their own great spirits, their own beings, invisible to things of this world until they overtook and possessed most uh, horrifically and immediately and bloody and causing the death of whatever human that they possessed. And then running like gazelles and using great strength to hurl houses out of the way to find other humans and to kill other humans. And why do they want to do nothing but scream? Why do they want to do nothing but just scream and rampage and kill other humans? That tells you that whatever those beings were, they were human at one time and they fucked up and were punished. Although the punishment, like I have stated before, the punishment should have been the undoing or uncreation. Everybody knows how to create something, whether you take ingredients of food, um, mix and match together and mash up and whip up and stir up and fry up and bake and so on, and you create something else. It's called food. It's called a certain dish to eat, or it's called a certain um, uh, many ingredients to make certain to make what you would call uh, uh, a meal of liquid or some type of solid foods to eat. Or you take components of the woods and the grass, the clays, the rocks from nature, make concrete, cut down the trees, uh, cut the ends of the tree logs, thick tree logs, really good, uh, make wood slabs out of the huge trees, 10 feet across or so. And you have 3 or 4 foot wide slabs of lumber or so on. Cut those down even more. Make hundreds of them matching, and you can make a house or make a several-story house with it's 100 feet wide, 100 feet deep or so, and have wood lathing or wood lumber or what do you call slabs of wood? Uh, Slabs of wood, 50 feet long, 100 feet long. However you mill them and cut them and shape each little wood slab, and keep it straight in the construction, and or just use wood logs, or make bricks out of the sand and gravel and the slurries and clays that you would mix in, and other little chemicals that would help bind all of that material together, and then make little molds, make bricks, make some big bricks, big portions of whatever. Let them dry, and then from there just stack up and connect, and using sod or grass, grass sodding or something. However you did it, or just take certain crystals and rocks and keeping them two rocks or two objects from the ground, which would be rock form, or some lump of coal or clay or something that came from the earth, and you could either cut it up and polish it and refine it and stick it inside some type of computer type machine, and or else just have those three rocks or three objects or five or two of them together or something, and make a little energy field, and then you can shape that energy field, and you have an igloo shape, or you have a teepee shape, or you have a trapezoid or some type of round ball. Yeah, you could have a house 100 feet wide. You could make a big dome, and everybody in your town just lives underneath it. And as long as you keep those crystals or rocks or objects together or within a certain distance of each other, and the force field is always there. And you see, different incidences and different things can occur out of whatever enlightened civilizations would do or are allow themselves to do. But such creativity and high living of anything really has no place for one being or two, or let alone four beings like this Adelov Haas incident, this work of fiction. But it comes from some true source somewhere. Um, if even you were able to use God powers and stop these four beings, and you know, make your little teleportation beam use things from nature around you, and okay, well, give these people some flesh and build a body for them. Extrapolate from their little spirits or their huge, big, tall spirits or whatever they are, what they look like, or extracting from their own memories that become uh, discernible by any technology you would have at any given time. Then you figure out what they look like or know what they look like. Make bodies for them immediately or in a few days or so, that they can inhabit that look just like they used to look. If you could restrain them or keep them from rampaging, but give bodies to them that they look like, so you know what they look like, and then I want to say infect, but move their minds and make them so that they can speak and will stop their rampaging and then try and communicate. And then whatever language they would speak originally, then they would speak if they were able to or not. But you could withdraw such things from them. So, but then again, all of this subject stuff is within the realms of science fiction, but it comes from fact. So these are incidences and these are subjects that cross my mind and have been across my mind for a few decades now. From the many things that I have sleep dreamed about and just saw, like you go on a little funds ride somewhere, or if you're a passenger in that experience and you're just seeing things and being taken through and being carried through your dreams. You just watch, passive mostly. But if you are awake and aware, then you will see things and learn from and keep with you. Or you can have out-of-body experience, actively go somewhere, run, fly, however you want to do it. You can pass through the earth, literally go through the earth, pop up somewhere else on the planet, and or go through any building, anything. Nothing is in your way when you are an out-of-body experience. You can go across town and into another building or something. Not that you become a peeping Tom or anything, but if you want to, you can go see how much grain is in somebody's grain elevator. Look at their cows and see how their cow. Because any scene that you look at, and any of your own visitations and motions and movements that you do, anything you look at, anything that this, you stop and look, you see a little paper plate on the ground, or you see a little hairpin, or you catch notice of a feather, or you even see a little blowing puff of wind moving through the yard or against the house of somebody or someplace that you visit. You can literally look at anything and then the before story of where it came from and how it ended up there and its future. So everything has a story. Everything and anything has a story. So this incident here of these poor hapless kids that went camping in 1959, 1960, and then suddenly were impressed upon by some horrific, unimaginable, strange force or something caused all of them to immediately come out of their sleep. Most of them were eating because food was already prepared. However, campers do such things. But a couple of people were laying down, and some people were undressed to some extent, and a couple of people were fully clothed. And even in the tent, it had to be 30 degrees. You had to have clothes on to be really comfortable. Even your socks and sleep in some type of soft booty or soft boot and some gloves and a cap on your head or something around your face and something loose so you could breathe in your sleep. You couldn't just have a pair of BVD undies on or a top soft shirt and then your sleeping bag or a blanket. No, you have, and when you're camping out in the woods, Doesn't matter how uh, how well insulated or good your tent is. Even in today's modern world, no. You need to have clothes on, and then you'll be warm and comfortable. You need to have a good jacket on, then you'll be warm and comfortable. You need a couple of thick layer socks on your feet, maybe some soft house slippers or some uh, liner booties or of snow boots on your feet. Inside your tent or inside the big 20-man tent, even if you have body heat from other people, even if you're all in the same uh, little cubicle or so of your tent, or a big old fashioned tent, heavy tarp tent that people used to live in 100 years ago, 200 years ago, when they were out camping. So, but then this story here starts somewhere else, goes somewhere else, and it only drags these 9 people into the story. In the story, because these soldiers, when they were following 4 of the possessed people across the wilderness and around the military base, because there was the odd survivor that was still running out there in the woods and managed to catch the attention of those 4 beings that were staying together, staying in proximity to each other, and were screaming and howling. You knew where they were. They didn't hide it. But they would somehow be attracted by noise and by light. And sure enough, those 4 beings in this story saw a tent and headed towards that tent and ripped their way into and stepped in, and all mayhem broke loose for those 9 kids. And those 9 kids scattered. Some were killed immediately. Some were just, well, the old bodies were had the quote unquote demonic spirit or whatever, the spirit that possessed the old body of the old person or another person, left the old body and took over a nearest body of one of the camping kids. So, who immediately started howling, screaming, and dragging up from the very depths of their soul, and from hell, and from all the dark world's creations, the most inhumane of noise and screeching, not lasting 10 seconds or so, but literally lasting 1 minute or so. Where does all that air from the lungs of a normal person come from? It doesn't. So that's where one story is within one story in another story. So, okay, 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 3 hours and 4 minutes. So, and it's 4 in the morning. So, I am putting this on HoobTube. People that like to listen to these diatribes go on. Like I listen to other people. Not everyone, but I do watch and listen to other people to see what they have to say. I don't look for faults in other people's experiences and expressions, but I do hope to draw parallels, or to draw a similar conclusion, or to at least learn something. I learn from you, whoever you are, whoever I watch, whoever I listen to, and I would hope that you learn from me. Uh, but I'm just humble. I'm a bit of an innocent, you would say. Yeah, I don't know anything. Only for myself do I know everything. I wish you all well. Thanks for watching. I have nothing other than I don't want to make copyright strikes against me. I don't want to have people complaining about this, that, and the other, and saying strikes against my channel needs to happen or so on. So let me hit the.
Get no more from our former commander. Grudgingly, I gave him a canteen of water. It seems we will all die here. Either the screaming ones find us, or we die out there in the snow, one by one. If anyone finds this diary, God be
Either
with you,
the screaming
for he
ones
has abandoned us.
find us.
January 30th,
God has abandoned us.
1959. 5 more men down. We are now only 14. Yuri, thankfully, among them. Sergei still lives and has been moved to our mess hall to be better guarded.
So anyway,
February 1st, 1959. May God have mercy on my soul. Today's events will haunt me till the day I